Today, as Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr to end the holy month of Ramadan, President John Dramani Mahama is making yet another promise. He's promising that Ghana's economy will experience a positive change by the end of the year as his government implements what he calls painful but necessary measures to prevent a total meltdown.
I currently spend a disproportionate large amount of my time on issues relating to the economy and the energy sector. As captain of the ship of state and on the bridge, I can assure you that the signs of recovery will manifest in the latter part of this year for all of us to see. There are calmer waters ahead.
President's remarks during his Eid message in the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, appears to be his first reaction to the series of labor agitations and protests that have hit the country over the past week. So what should this promise mean to the millions of Ghanaians expecting immediate change in the economy? My name is Stephen Enti, and this is today's big story. Well, on behalf of all of us here, we wish our Muslim brothers and sisters happy Eid Mubarak. I wonder whether that's the greetings. But speaking to a gathering of Muslims at the forecourt of the Kumasi Central Mosque to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, the president said he considered the message from workers as encouragement to work harder. A series of labor agitations have hit the country in the past month, with organized labor embarking on a nationwide protest over worsening economic conditions last Thursday. In an 8-point petition that they presented to government, the workers demanded immediate action to tackle the problem to avoid total meltdown of the economy. Well, the president has responded and is calling on Ghanaians to join him in his positive posturing towards the prospects of Ghana's economy in the next 5 months.
Later this week, I will preside over the meeting of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Economic Recovery. This group will help me guide the implementation of measures to restore the economy to prosperity. We will work to stabilize the currency, to bring down inflation and bring down interest rates. We are on a journey to transform our economy. We must create a permanent fix that cures our cyclical loss of economic stability. We must reform our public financial management, and most of all, we must expand local production of goods and services. I've assigned tasks to my ministers emanating from my State of the Nation address, and I'm monitoring keenly the attainment of these important objectives. We're increasing investments in agriculture to increase the production of strategic commodities on which we spend a disproportionate amount of our foreign exchange. These investments are resulting in a positive increase in local rice production. Support to the poultry sector is also yielding impressive results. We are pursuing the revival of the Commander Sugar Factory to help cut down our huge import bill on sugar. We are also investing millions of cedis in local pharmaceutical companies to augment the local production of drugs here in Ghana. Initiatives in aquaculture will also create jobs and increase the supply of fish. This transformation is the surest security for the sustainable socio-economic development of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I have every confidence that these measures will definitely begin to yield good results. We need to be optimistic and eschew any attitudes of cynicism and pessimism. With faith, determination, and hard work, we shall succeed as we apply all the knowledge and expertise we have in solving our problems.
Well, so the question tonight is this the sign labor unions have been agitating for? Are they ready to be optimistic about the country's economic prospect? And by the way, what does optimism mean? We're trying to get onto the telephone line. Solomon Kote, who's General Secretary of ICU. When we raise him on, we will have this chat with him. In the meantime, we have Irbad Ibrahim, who is an international news analyst, and Muslim Youth is joining us. Good evening,
Good evening,
Irbad. It's great to have you.
Yes,
Happy Eid Mubarak. Is that what I should say?
You can just say Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
Or Barka da Salah.
Barka da
But
Salah.
if you say Eid Mubarak, the response is Kullu Am wa Antum bi Khair.
Right.
Kullu Am.
It's a good day today, right?
Nice.
And Muslims around the world are celebrating the end of the holy month of Ramadan. And when you hear the president saying that we should be optimistic, I do know that Muslim communities and Muslims in general form a large chunk of the marginalized, poor communities, Zongo communities, etc. Does this message give hope to you and your people?
Yeah, it does. I really took time to read the whole transcript of the president's speech. I think this particular one imbues some optimism, even though in the past promises were made, but unfortunately they weren't fulfilled. And as it is said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So there is something unique about this one for 3 reasons. The first is that for the first time, the president has indicated that he's had to take tough measures because the country is in a meltdown. So therefore, I think this puts to rest, the use of the word meltdown puts to rest the debate as to whether what our economy is facing is a challenge or is in a crisis. Therefore, I think it's a subliminal admission of the fact that our economy is indeed in a crisis. And then secondly, the president has also given strict timelines to Ghanaians as to when they should expect the dividends.
End of the year, really. Many people wonder whether the demand workers are making immediate. This is it, really.
Yeah, so that is why he has categorized it into, medium-term and long-term issues. So for the fact that he has given a strict timeline, and this is a novelty, that arms us, the electorate, with the needed ammunition to hold government accountable in case we don't see vestiges of recovery in the economy by the end of the year. And then thirdly, he says he's presiding over a special committee to stop the depreciation of the Ghanaian currency. But Steve, when you even look from an international point of view, sometimes it is good to step back and ask the question, why is our economy in such tatters? Who is responsible for this? Some have argued that this is a cursed baby that has been midwifed by the current NDC government. But you could also argue that it's a culmination of some 14 years of economic mismanagement, in which case the erstwhile NPP government would also be culpable.
Should be taken.
So we should be able to apply a non-partisan approach to this thing. This is a national crisis.
I'll have you hold. I'm joined on the line by Solomon Kote, who is General Secretary of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, my brother. Good evening to you.
Now, I know that the organized labor has been asking for immediate action. I mean, is this what you are looking for the president to come and say that, well, you have to be optimistic, share my positive optimism, and let's see what the end of the year brings? The government is saying that they've taken some painful but necessary measures. I mean, are these what you've been expecting?
Well, it's refreshing. The president is not debunking the complaints and the petition that have been sent to him. It is also refreshing to note that he's saying he's taking note of each and every one of them, and that together he's going to ensure that by the end of the year we shall be receiving the dividends of the sacrifices that all Ghanaians have been making. But the question one will be asking, and this one I'm speaking as Industrial and Commercial Workers Union General Secretary, is this. We've had many promises from this very president, especially from last year when he began promising us that the issue of the doomsday will be a thing of the past, November, January, March, and so on and so forth. And it's like if we are to take him on his promises, none of his promises have seen the light of the day. However, we're also very optimistic, being Ghanaians, that we want this country to be good and to be well with us. We are hoping that he will rather assign his economic team to engage those of us who have gone on the street to speak very loud, to know exactly what things have been put in place to give us the results. But this open blank check that is given, that by December, we think it is too open for any serious-minded person to take it serious.
So let me ask you again. I mean, you were saying that it's open-ended, but he's giving a timeline. Is it not perhaps that your unions are being unrealistic for you to make demands and say immediate demand 1, immediate demand 2, up to 8? It's like you're not waking up and smelling the coffee. None of your demands can be met immediately.
The issues you put out there, if we use the word immediate, it does not signify and imply that by tomorrow get this or that one done. We are demanding that if we do the practical steps, immediate practical steps that are taken to resolve the issues, is what Labour was actually asking for. Not that tomorrow, by this time, give us ABC.
Right. So what will be your reaction? I mean, are you going to give the president leg room? I mean, stop demonstrating, stop hitting the streets, and give the president some time, let's say 5 months, so that by the end of the year he could cough up the promise he's making?
Ideally, we are expecting him that the structures through which he works, those structures should engage us so that we will know the definite steps that are being taken. You know, it's too broad and too general to hear the president speak the way he has done. We are hoping that his very arm of government will be speaking to us and will appreciate what steps he's taking.
You're not giving the president any chance at all, are you?
No, you see, because like I said, he's a president who has given promises for a period, and we are yet to see one come to fruition.
You are being too cynical, aren't you?
We aren't at all. I'm happy when he said all the issues we raised were not issues that were not foundable. They were issues that are real, and he embraces it. He didn't, throw any of them out, but rather to say, I'll have found solution to it, and by December. Now, that is refreshing to note, that the person that you're expecting to deliver is telling you, by December, I'll deliver.
All right. We'll still have you hold Solomon Kote. We're joined on the other telephone line by Sydney Casely Hayford, who is a financial analyst. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, good evening to you guys.
Now, the president is saying that his government has had to take some painful, I quote, painful but necessary measures to avoid a meltdown. Honestly, I can't see any. Is there anything in particular that stands out in your mind that you would say have been necessary but painful to avoid a total meltdown?
I wouldn't say necessary, but I would say painful. We have had to deal with the increased taxes and increased utility prices. Maybe some of those utility prices we can say were necessary because we need to make sure that the institutions that manage the energy sector can actually survive. And currently, as it is, with the kind of tax that we are paying, it would be impossible for them to survive. However, there is still a lot of leakage in all of those institutions. So, despite all of that, you might probably say it wasn't necessary because we could have asked them to actually correct some of those things. So we wouldn't have to take all the pain or they take all the glory.
Right, Sydney, your line is a bit cranky. If you're near to a window and you can move close by, so we could improve your reception. But here, let's look at it this way: the president is asking. It's more like asking Ghanaians to be patient. I mean, give it up to the end of the year. That something positive, a positive change, is coming, but it's coming towards the end of the year. Is this a promise that Ghanaians should be holding the president to and waiting for the end of the year for things to get better?
Well, he hasn't said precisely what those issues are. There's an echo coming from your line.
Right.
I don't know whether that's why
we're trying to see we'll correct the problem, and we'll hope that whilst we're still speaking, the line gets better. Otherwise, we will have to drop you so that we try again, Sydney. So I can still hear you though, but you were saying that the president hasn't made any specific pronouncements of things that he wants to do or not do, for which Ghanaians should be patient and wait for 5 months. Right, Sydney Casey is off the line. We're getting technical challenges with the line. We'll try and raise him back, but Irbad is here. So you were saying that it provides some hope. I mean, the president's statement provides some hope and optimism that we should hold on to. But things are hard. I mean, many of my friend, Mahaji Hawa, Ibrahim, my very good friend, told me she couldn't cook today. Things must be hard for not to cook.
Yeah, certainly I could tell you that people are feeling the pinch of the dire economic straits in the country. But I think we've gotten to a time when we have to do an introspection of the kind of governance system we have. Now we are at 6 and 7s. We have a government in place that is entirely confused about how to deal with the economy. Then there is an opposition that is awash with expertise. So now we are confused. This government is too haughty, to enlist the expertise of the opposition.
And the opposition is not providing anything credible.
Gloating over the fiasco in here because they can make political capital out of this. So therefore,
provide no tangible solutions.
Exactly,
is that what you're suggesting?
Because in the long run, it would be in the interest of the opposition to be able to punch holes and say that ABC went wrong and therefore vote them out of power and vote us
But
in.
they're not doing that.
We
still have Solomon Kote. I'm afraid the telephone lines are not too good, so we don't want to hold them on the line too long. So, Solomon, I want to wrap up with you. I mean, the president has said something. He has made a promise. He has said, give us some time. We're taking pragmatic measures for which we're hoping that by the end of 5 months, you should see something positive. What are you going to do now from this promise?
Well, like I was intimating earlier on, I'm hoping that the various arms of government, in terms of those that who are advising the government and giving him the rays of hope that within 5 months they will fix all that is worrying us, it will allow us to get engaged with them so that we'll see the practical steps. He's spoken in general terms. He's spoken, with a blank check. But we believe if he gets those people to engage us to show us exactly what they are on the ground doing, we can appreciate that.
Right. Thank you very much. Solomon Kote is General Secretary in charge of administration for the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union. I must remind you that today's big story is brought to you in association with Nationwide PVC. They are fabricators and suppliers of high-grade UPVC doors and windows. They are supporting us on today's big story. So, but we're still juggling this issue. That the point you made earlier was that the opposition doesn't seem to be in a position to be providing us with credible alternatives, and yet are taking advantage, making a mincemeat and political capital out of the lapses and failures of a government which you say is not doing too well.
They are not to blame. You are a Yankee boy. You just returned from New Jersey. You remember so well the credit crunch of 2007 and 2008. It wasn't blamed upon the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. It was as a result of the mortgage, miscalculations of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And at the end of the day, a bipartisan approach was adopted until they could get out of the economic doldrums. That is what we are not doing in sub-Saharan Africa. Our multi-party system is about Party A succeeding entirely on its credit, or Party B failing completely, so that the
and for which Party A doesn't mind if it comes to power to scrap all programs from the Party B.
It becomes quite difficult. Senchu was, boycotted because of, tangible reasons that were given and all that. And as a Muslim today, I took time and then, read the transcript of this speech. It was too general. It was big on promise, but very little on specifics.
Substance.
Because if you address the Muslim community and you indicated that some of the most challenged, people we have in the country
come from the Muslim communities.
You didn't mention the case of Kayai people, young, Northerners that come from various hinterlands and come here to
non-existent jobs.
And I gave this example on another show this morning. When you go to Malata, you just weep for these girls, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds that have no roofs above their heads. What is government doing about them? When you have addressed the Eid, which is the most mammoth gathering of Muslims of this country.
So you would have expected something that will specifically address the challenges that Muslim communities are facing,
because
not a general...
Because of the convenience of the venue. Issues like, resuscitating the defunct Commander Sugar Factory are quite lofty. The issues of, helping local pharmaceuticals with the needed economic injection to carry out their experimentations and all, those are all nice. But for the fact that you addressed Muslims, and for the first time the president chose not to address the national chief imam at the Independence Square directly. He went to Kumasi. So therefore, I expected him to state concrete things. There are interventions, social interventions, geared towards the downtrodden in the Muslim community, like Zid and others.
And we didn't hear anything of that nature. That's worrying, right?
At least you could have given us a situational report of how far government has gone in those interventions and how to ameliorate the wrongs, and so that holistically there will be an overarching impact on the economy of the Muslim community in this country.
Sydney Casely Hayford is back on the line. So, Sydney, our line was bad earlier, but I am making inference from what Irbad here in the studio is saying, that the president's statement on Eid was too generalized, that he didn't specifically say he was going to do A, B, C, and D, for which Ghanaians should be optimistic or patient and wait till the end of the month. Is there anything you'd say the president should have said to make this promise a bit more tangible?
Well, the issue of specificity has always been a problem. It has never been addressed the way it should be. But I think what the president should have done was not to have made a promise to deliver any solution in December or by December. It's not possible to do with the state in which the economy is. You cannot turn it around in 5 months. It's just not practicable. It's not economically feasible. And I don't see any tangible issues that they will bring up, especially when the first half-year results have been so poor that they've had to revise all the macroeconomic indicators in order to be able to show some success. So I am not certain at all of what the president has under his belt and what makes him think that he can actually turn this economy around by December. And I think that we are being given targets which would come and then would have to be postponed again. And it's not the first time that we have heard this done this way by this particular government.
Right, Sydney Casely here. We're grateful for your time on today's Big Story. We're joined on the other telephone line also by Professor Amin Al-Hassan, who is a political science lecturer at the University of Development Studies, UDS. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Now, the president's statement, is it likely to heighten expectations as seen in previous government promises?
No, I think that today's speech by President John Mahama should be taken seriously. You can contest the forum he chose to discuss these issues. But I think that what I gathered from his talk was actually about how a government has had a particular economic plan that it has been in the West, but that has been poorly communicated to Ghanaians. Now, it is based on, I believe it is based on what the government has been doing, managing a crisis that has been long in the making through several years of a particular economic path that we have been pursuing as a country. And we are now seeing a government, a president that has been dealing with these issues without telling us very much about what it is doing. The nose-diving of the currency, the reduction in people's real income, the doomsday and the challenges with water supply and other utilities were all symptoms of a much deeper crisis that we know that our economy, look, the truth is that our economy has been addicted to foreign assistance. When foreign assistance was held back, we had a crisis set in. If you listen to the president very well, he was speaking to certain domestic economic issues that he needs to bring up, investing in agriculture, investing in local industry, to see how these particular industries will come up to help prevent our overdependence on external forces. Nobody is saying that Ghana can be alone, can go it alone, but if you look at what has happened, how our crisis started, it started when our donors held back the cash flows. And why should we depend on that? So what I'm seeing from what the president spoke about today, for me, it gave me hope in the sense that we are beginning to see the government being determined and optimistic that its development plan is not coming to fruition. And I believe it is based on this that the president is promising us that we'll see results.
Right, Professor Al-Hassan, what about the timing? I mean, the president chose addressing a group of Muslims in Ashanti regional capital on Eid.
Earlier, yes, that's right. You can contest the timing. You can contest the forum he chose. In fact, I expected the president to have responded to the demonstrations much earlier. Why he kept so long really is not really the best of political act.
And you see this as a communication lapse?
It is a communication lapse. Really, John Mahama was supposed to be a communication expert. His presidency has been characterized with communication challenges. I don't expect the president to give very specifics. That is left over to his ministers to deal with. President should normally stay away from very specific issues and promises. we should expect to see his ministers doing this. We are not seeing that. Unfortunately, I would say that his biggest challenge has been how to communicate his policies to Ghanaians. Labour is very restless precisely because we are not sure what is coming out of our current sacrifices we are making in our real fall of income, our real challenges with our income falling. We don't know what is coming out of it. And so I really think that the challenge has been how to tell us what is going, what is cooking in the kitchen.
Right, Professor Amin, we're very grateful for your time. Briefly, Professor Amin is a political science lecturer at the University of Development Studies. We're grateful for your time.
Yes. Briefly on communication, I think there is a yawning disconnect between government's communication machinery and the grassroots. That is why we aren't privy to many of the good things that are happening behind the scenes. But I think whatever happens at the end of the day, you raised 3 senior colleagues on the phone. The last one accepted this, welcomed it with cautious optimism. The 2 took it with a pinch of salt. So that tells you that the credibility of the president is bruised somewhat, and therefore he needs to salvage that credibility. So if he says December, it should be December so that we see signs of recovery.
Let's address the key issue that you mentioned before I jumped onto the other telephone line about concerns that affect Muslim communities. I won't go without mentioning these challenges because specifically this is it, and we should be able to acknowledge that these challenges are there. The issue of Kayaye, for example, it's not only Kayaye. I mean, there are male porters as well as female porters in the country as well. What specifically are Muslim youths expecting in order to make life better, or in order for them to say, indeed, the government has delivered?
I think today the Muslims of this country expected 2 things from the president. The fact that as Muslims we empathize with our brethren that are being massacred in the Gaza Strip. It is so poignant to see gruesome footage on TV about women and children being killed. So for the fact that he has chosen such a forum, he shouldn't have even made, comprehensive or, sweeping diplomatic or political statements against Israel or the United States. But at least, helping us in prayer would have done us a lot of good because we are going through a lot of trauma. Then with specifics, there are so many things. Many of the youth are
my time is running out, but I'll give you a minute just to wrap because we will have to take other issues before we end the show.
Okay, finally, I think we aren't so disappointed with the speech the president gave at 8, but we expected more.
Right. Okay, Iqbal, we're grateful. Now, you may know that Ebola is on the rise in other parts of West Africa, and in Ghana, what we've heard is that only 4 out of the 42 borders in our country is Ebola ready. So what really is Ghana doing in its attempt to hold down on the Ebola virus before it gets nasty? We're getting onto the telephone lines now to speak to a public health expert to address this issue for us. You're watching today's Big Story, and I must say that Big Story is brought to you in association with Nationwide PVC, fabricators and suppliers of high-grade UPVC and windows. We're expecting to get Dr. Emmanuel Doche on the telephone. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening, sir.
We are worried that in Ghana, the 42 borders in our country, only 4 are Ebola ready. This must be threatening to public health, won't you say?
And the line is also clear.
Right, I'm saying that we have followed reports that out of the 42 legitimate entry points that we have, only 4 are well equipped to handle the Ebola pandemic. I'm asking you whether, as a public health expert with the Ghana Health Service, we shouldn't be frightened about this poor situation.
If I may ask, if you say not equipped, what do you really want to know?
Well, you have to tell me. You are the public health expert. I mean, if a border is equipped, what should they have? It should have a quarantine service. It should have standby health personnel in order to be able to test and detect Ebola entering our country. You have to tell me. I don't know what the Ghana Health Service will consider as Ebola ready on our border.
I don't think we need to be scared and just create panic. The idea is for us to remain calm and don't need to create unnecessary panic among the public.
But it's scary. Doc, it's scary if of 42, only 4 can detect Ebola entering our country, we must be worried. I'm surprised that you said we shouldn't panic. I will panic in a situation like that.
What you are saying, I don't think what you are saying is what is really on the ground. Because if you tell me that 4 that are ready to detect, we don't only detect, how do you say, Ebola at the border. We only suspect cases. When travelers are coming, what we have is the port health staff that are supposed to administer health declaration certificates to the travelers. So as they come, those who declare on their health, depending on the signs and symptoms they present, they have signs that is Ebola suspected, is suspected as I may say.
Right.
Then they are referred to the immediate health facility that is available, that is close to the border. Further investigations start on. So if you are just saying only 4 out of, I don't think that is what is on the ground, because we have port health staff that have become at the point of entry. So if any traveler crosses a border, that's where we have port health staff. They ask few questions about where he's coming from, what is the health status, some few questions about his health status. And if it's noted that he has any sign that may suspect to be Ebola, then the person is immediately referred to the nearest health facility and investigations are conducted.
Right, thank you.
Existing surveillance system.
Right, thank you very much. Dr. Emmanuel Doche is a public health expert with the Ghana Health Service. We're grateful for your time. We apologize, this is all time will allow us. My name is Stephen Enti, and this has been today's Big Story. We'll be right back with an interactive segment. Stay with us.